Hello and welcome to the Story Forge. My name's Ellis, and this week we're going to be talking about societies and cultures. 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is built upon 3 pillars of adventure: social interaction, exploration, and combat. While the aspect of societies and cultures do well to serve all 3 pillars of adventure, we're specifically going to focus on the second one, exploration, because cultures and societies, particularly in fantasy role-playing games, give the players opportunity to learn and discover new things. When we speak of society at a most basic level, we are referring to a group of people that form a basic community that lives together. Combine this with culture, which we can define as the arts and manifestations of the society's intellectual achievements that help define them. We can take these operational definitions and use them to craft a society and a culture for our campaign setting. I'd like to begin with the disclaimer that this is a fantasy role-playing game that takes place in a fictitious world and is not a reflection of our reality, our personal views, or our personal beliefs, or who we are, but rather a setting for a game that is played at a table, virtual or physical, by friends. The possibilities are only limited by our imagination and our personal drive to explore the science of our own world. Michael A. Stackpole's essay, They Do What Now? On Societies and Cultures, advises us to accept the intellectual challenge of creating a new culture, then to think through the consequences of the decisions we make. Whether it be an outward physical characteristic, such as nobles carry dueling blades, or a societal rule that the firstborn of every family must slay a dragon to reach adulthood and status in society, each decision has impact. He recommends starting with the basic biology of the species to find the relationship between the sexes and genders. This may or may not be limited to 2 in your world. There could be additional sexes and genders, as well as non-binary members of a species. Ask yourself a series of questions about these relationships between members of the race. Is the society matriarchal, like the Dark Elves of traditional Dungeons & Dragons? Perhaps the society has no gender, like many of the Warforged from the Eberron campaign setting. Do gender roles and societal positions change over time? Let's give an example. My society lives in a mountain. They have no gender identity. Offspring are created through cellular mitosis. Anyone can create offspring, and they can do it solo. And it is a racial ability that occurs annually. Your role in society is established by your height. The tallest is always the leader, and the smallest is always second in command. Now let's think through the consequences. Does this mean that infants and babies get a chance to lead? Surely not. You must be considered an adult first. And to be considered an adult, you must answer the riddle of the tallest, and you only get to attempt this riddle once a year. And the tallest member of society changes annually at an event known as the Measuring of the Ages. The society journeys to the Great Willow. Assemble in a line, they organize themselves until they have all arranged in their proper order, standing back to back. The current tallest member of this society measures everybody else. And this will establish their role in the society for the year that follows. And what if the roads to the Great Willow are inaccessible that year? Well, those that make the trek will still be measured, and it is their duty to be measured. Or perhaps the leadership extends until the trek can be made, and perhaps that extends an entire year. The impacts of these consequences affect society as a whole, and also each and every individual. This process is simply taking a broad decision we make, then examining how each detail we introduce continues to have a consequence, which impacts society. It may not hold up to the scrutiny of the ages, but if it passes the brief visit your players make during an adventure session, then you've done a good job. The second half of this is examining how this connects to your existing world. Is the connection economical, where the society needs something from a neighboring society? My tallies from before, those that establish leadership through height, they need access to the willow tree. And to do that, they need to build handcarts. And they build handcarts out of wood. They get this wood from the forest people who live below the mountain. They trade ore, which is very abundant in the mountain, and they are quite adept at obtaining this ore. In fact, they are able to pick it right out of the mountain, like a farmer picks an apple from a tree. Some say they sing the ore right out of the stone, by whispering an ancient melody that they've passed down through the centuries. Maybe the connection to a neighboring society is geographical. In this case, the lowland society is connected to the mountain folk, but maybe there is a society who claims ownership of the road, or crossroad, that passes to the Great Willow. In fact, there's a river that goes through the road, and it's claimed by a bunch of river trolls who tax the bridge, which controls access to the Great Willow. Each year the trolls wait for the tallies so they can tax them. The tallies either have to figure out a way around the trolls by hiring a fairy, or pay the trolls the ore they request. Or they need to sneak past in the middle of the night if they can't afford the toll. Maybe the connection is theological. The Willow people, who we just made up, believe they were made by the same god as the tallies. The tallies were made to protect the mountain, and the Willow people were made to protect the willow. The willow is more fragile, so it must be kept hidden. The Willow people are a druidic order that disguise the Great Willow's location from outsiders. The tallies know about it because its location has been passed down from year to year. Each year at the annual measuring, the Willow people and the tallies rejoice to see one another, for they are all children of the same god. We have come up with an enormous amount of detail, and we haven't even necessarily defined how the tallies look. They could be Goliaths, or Dragonborn, or Thrykeen, or perhaps even Bloops from the Herculoids. And as we introduce how they look, that will have further consequences. Let's do this as an activity. Create a society by inserting it in a location and determining how gender relates to the society. Is it a reversal of the male domination trope? Is it true gender equality? Make a decision. In my example of the tallies, they have no gender. They simply determine who leads the society based on height. How does that impact their religious beliefs and theology? How does it relate to their history? Were they always this way, or was there an event that created this? We know the tallies were put in this position by their god. Perhaps when they were first put here, the first leader just happened to be the tallest, and his companion was the shortest. This tradition was passed on through the years. Next, insert them into a location. We placed our tallies in a mountain. How does the location impact their lives and society? How does living in this location manifest itself in the arts and economics? The tallies sing songs to the stone, and they are known as stone singers. They extract ore from the mountain and trade it with the lowlanders, who help them craft handcarts. How does your society determine who leads? You don't have to go too deep into the politics, but make a decision and delve into the details. The tallies are led by the tallest and the smallest. They determine this in an annual event called the Great Measuring. They perform the measuring annually. It takes a pilgrimage to get there. They need handcarts from the lowlanders. They have to pay tolls to the Trollkin Bridgers, or take a ferry across from river dragons, or sneak in the middle of the night. You can literally continue this exercise forever. But that's what makes it so interesting. Delving into details about a society and seeing how that physically manifests is what introduces excitement into a campaign and allows the players to explore brave new worlds and exciting new settings. These details don't have to be self-serving lore, but they can be introduced as texture that enriches your Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting and serves that second pillar of exploration, which is important in 5th edition D&D. Next week we're going to talk about technology and how technological developments impact cultures, societies, and the campaign setting.